Jain children, today we are going to study the remaining portions in photosynthesis in higher plants. Previous class we have studied the light reaction which consists of two steps, cyclic way and non-cyclic way. How cyclic and non-cyclic way occurs in plant that we have studied in the previous class. Now we are continuing with the portion that is light reaction. How ATP is produced during the light reaction. The end products of light reactions are ATP and NADPH. So how this ATP is formed? NADP we know NADP is combining with the proton reduced to NADPH. Then how this ATP is synthesized? Again I am repeating the steps in non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Just you recollect that point. First of all, there we can see two pigment system, photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. Both are present in grana thylakoid, isn't it? So both the pigment system are present in grana thylakoid. So this is a structure of a chloroplast. This is outer membrane, inner membrane, and this is fluid stroma. And here we can see the thylakoid. The group of thylakoid is called a grana. Adjacent grana are connected by stroma thylakoid. Now here you can see a grana thylakoid enlarged portion is here. So this is a grana thylakoid where we can see both the pigment system, photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. So when light is coming, who becomes excited? PS2 become excited. As a result, the electron is jumping to outside. That is, here this portion is stroma. So now here we can see this is the thylakoid membrane, or this is the grana thylakoid. From here the electron is jumping to outside, that means here the stroma. So here also we can see the electron acceptor is located on the stroma portion. From the electron acceptor the electron is entering to electron transport system, that is also located on the membrane, thylakoid membrane. And from this electron transport system, or through the electron transport system, the electron is entering to PS1. And from the PS1 again it is excited and accepted by another electron acceptor that is located on the stroma portion. And from this electron acceptor the electron is entering to the formation of NADPH. So in this pathway, this is a non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So here we have already studied when the electron is passing through electron transport system, one molecule of ATP is synthesized, that we have studied. In this class, we are going to study how this ATP is formed. When the electron is passing through the electron transport system, ATP is produced. How it is produced, that we are going to study. And this can be explained through a hypothesis called a chemiosmotic hypothesis. So chemiosmotic hypothesis is explaining about how ATP is synthesized in chloroplast. During the non-cyclic photophosphorylation or the cyclic photophosphorylation, both in cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation, when the electron is traveling through electron transport system, one ATP is produced, that we have studied. So how this ATP is produced, and that can be explained through chemiosmotic hypothesis. We know that ATP is formed from where ADP, adenosine diphosphate, is combining with the inorganic phosphate to become ATP. And this process is accelerated by the enzyme ATPase or ATP synthase. This is the enzyme. This enzyme activate accelerate the process of formation of ATP. And for this reaction, this ATP synthase enzyme is to be activated. This enzyme has to be activated. And this enzyme is activated by getting energy. Everyone is getting energy, then only it becomes activated, isn't it? So here also this enzyme is activated when it gets energy. How this enzyme is getting energy? For getting energy, ATPase enzyme is getting energy through the breakdown of a proton gradient. A proton gradient is occurring in the lumen of the thylakoid. When this proton gradient is breaking up, at that time it releases energy. With the help of energy, this enzyme is activated. So for that purpose, a proton gradient is to be found, isn't it? A proton gradient is to be found between the stroma and the lumen of thylakoid. And this proton gradient occurs by 3 different steps. The first chance for the accumulation of proton inside the lumen is, we know that from this PS2, the electrons are accepted by an electron acceptor which is located on the stroma portion. Now we can see the electron acceptor on the stroma region. From this electron acceptor, the electron will enter into the electron transport system. So when this electron is coming to this electron transport system, it will bring a proton from this stroma region to this portion. So the electron acceptor, from the electron acceptor, the proton will comes back to this PS1 through the electron transport system with the help of a proton carrier. So one proton is also coming along with this electron. So when this electron transport system carry over the electron to this PS1, at the same time the proton is released inside the lumen. And this proton is coming from where? From this stroma portion. So when the PS2 exciting the electron, it is accepted by an electron acceptor which is located on the stroma portion. And from the electron acceptor, the electron will enter into electron transport system. At that time, it will comes back to this electron transport system with the help of a proton carrier. A proton is also coming along with this electron, and when this electron will enter into PS1, the proton will enter inside the lumen. So we can see the accumulation of proton. So this is a first chance for the accumulation of proton inside the lumen. Then second one is, we know that PS2, associated with the PS2, we can see the splitting up of water. What is the importance of splitting up of water? For the continuous supply of electron to PS2, water undergo splitting. At that time we know that along with the electron who is also releasing proton. So when water is splitting into oxygen and proton and electron, the electron will enter into PS2 and the proton will be accumulated inside the lumen. So this is a second chance that brings the accumulation of proton inside the lumen. Then the third chance is, we know that NADP is reduced to NADPH by utilizing the proton which is present in the stroma portion, isn't it? So this is stroma region. This is thylakoid membrane. This is the lumen of the thylakoid. So this portion, this is called stroma. The proton which is present inside the stroma region is taken or utilized by NADP. NADP is reduced to NADPH. So the proton is utilized by NADP. So what happens means, in stroma region, the deficiency of proton occurs. All the protons are utilized for NADPH formation, and some amount of proton is also carried along with the electron. And the accumulation of proton occurs inside the lumen. So here we can see inside the lumen we can see the accumulation of proton, and stroma deficiency of proton occurs. So this is called a proton gradient. Here we can see the proton richness can be seen here, and here we can see the proton deficiency. So automatically what happens? The molecule will move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Here also the proton from higher concentrated region, that is from the lumen, began to move to outside. And here this enzyme ATPase or ATP synthase enzyme act as the channel that carry the proton from higher concentration to lower concentration. So here we can see the accumulation of proton, here we can see the deficiency of proton. So what happens, from the higher concentrated area, the protons began to move to lower concentrated area. And here it occurs through special membrane protein here, which act as the channel for carrying protein, ATPase or ATP synthase. ATP synthase enzyme has two portions that we can see here. There we can see an F0 portion and a F1 portion. So this is F0 portion that can be seen on the membrane of the thylakoid, and F1 is facing towards the stroma. This is stroma portion. So F1 region is located on the stroma region, F0 is present on the thylakoid membrane. So through this protein or through this enzyme, here this acts as the membrane protein that carry the molecule. So through this ATPase enzyme, the proton began to move from higher concentration to lower concentration. That means breaking up of proton gradient, isn't it? The proton gradient is breaking up. From higher concentration, the protons are moving to the lower concentration. So this breaking up releases energy, and this energy is utilized by the same enzyme, ATP synthase or ATPase enzyme. With the help of ATPase, this energy ADP will combines with the inorganic phosphate to become ATP. Okay, so ADP will combines with inorganic phosphate to become ATP, and that is accelerated with the help of this enzyme. And this enzyme is getting energy from where? By the breakdown of the proton gradient. And how this proton gradient occurs? Proton gradient occurs by three different ways. The first one is when the electron, when it is coming back from the electron acceptor to the PS1, it will bring proton from the stroma region to the lumen. Then second chance for the accumulation of proton is PS2 is associated with the splitting up of water, that also releases proton inside the lumen. And the third chance for the proton accumulation or the proton gradient is NADP is reduced to NADPH, that occurs in the stroma region, while the proton present in the stroma is utilized by this process. So in stroma region, proton deficiency occurs, and in lumen portion, proton accumulation occurs. As a result, what happens? The proton began to move from higher area to lower area, and here the ATPase enzyme acts as the channel. Through this channel, proton gradient will breaking up. As a result, energy is formed, and that energy is utilized by the same enzyme, and that energy is utilized for the combination of ADP plus inorganic phosphate to become ATP. In your textbook, there you can see the three steps that explaining about the proton gradient. The first one, there you can see splitting up of water. It occurs inside the membrane associated with the photosystem 2, and that releases some amount of proton. That is the first chance that is given there. The next, there you can see the diagram. So here you can see PS2 associated with the PS2, we can see the splitting up of water, and that releases some amount of proton. Then second one, there you can see cytochrome B6F, and also plastoquinone and plastocyanin. That these three pigments, or not pigments, these three are associated, or they can be seen in the electron transport system. Cytochrome B6, plastocyanin and plastoquinone, these are present inside the electron transport system. So through this molecule, the electron is traveling and entering to where? PS1. So the electron is moving through this and entering to PS1. At that time, the proton which is present inside the stroma is also coming along with the electron, and that is also entering to the lumen portion. Then, so that is also explained there. So that is the second point which is given in your textbook. And the third one, that is explaining about this NADPH formation. Here you can see the NADPH formation, and that is occurring in the stroma portion. This is stroma portion, and here this stroma portion, the protons are utilized by NADP. When this NADP is reduced to NADPH, the some amount of proton is also utilized. So that is explained in the third step. So these are the three different steps that explaining about the accumulation of proton inside the lumen. And when the proton is accumulated inside the lumen, and here we can see the deficiency of protons, so automatically proton will move from higher concentration to lower concentration, and here it moves through the special protein called ATPase or ATP synthase. That also you can see there. When the proton is moving through this enzyme, a proton gradient is breaking up, and that releases energy. With the help of energy, this enzyme combining ADP with the inorganic phosphate to become ATP. So that is explaining about chemiosmotic hypothesis. Light reaction is over, and the end product of light reactions are ATP and NADPH. Next we are going to study dark reaction. So that is the second event in photosynthesis. Dark reaction is otherwise called a biosynthetic phase, because here we can see the actual formation of glucose or starch. This phase does not depend upon the presence of light, but it requires the product of light reaction, that is ATP and NADPH. So this phase is otherwise called a Calvin cycle. Why? Because it is studied by the scientist Melvin Calvin. So the cycle is otherwise called a Calvin cycle, otherwise called a biosynthetic phase or dark reaction. Why it is called a dark reaction? Because even in the absence of sunlight this occurs. This reaction will occur, but it requires a product of sun reaction. Product of light reaction, ATP and NADPH. These are the product of light reaction. So, but in the absence of sunlight also it will happen. So, the reaction is called a dark reaction. And here we can see the formation of a glucose. So, this is otherwise called a biosynthetic phase. And this is otherwise called a Calvin cycle because it was studied, first of all studied by the scientist Melvin Calvin, and he used the radioactive isotope of carbon, that is carbon 14, in algal photosynthesis. And this phase is otherwise called a C3 cycle. Why it is called a C3 cycle? Because the first stable product which is formed during the fixation of carbon dioxide is a 3-carbon compound. Its name of the 3-carbon compound is phosphoglyceric acid, PGA, phosphoglyceric acid, which is the first compound formed in the cycle. So this phosphoglyceric acid is a 3-carbon compound. The end product is what? Starch or glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound, C6H12O6. But the first compound which is formed during this cycle is a 3-carbon compound. Its name is phosphoglyceric acid. So this cycle is otherwise called a C3 cycle. There are some other group of plants where the first stable compound product which is formed during this dark reaction or the carbon dioxide fixation was a 4-carbon compound. Instead of a 3-carbon, there we can see the first compound is a 4-carbon compound, and the name of the compound is oxaloacetic acid, OAA, oxaloacetic acid. So in these plants, the photosynthetic pathway is known as C4 pathway, because the first stable compound formed there is a 4-carbon compound, and that pathway is called a C4 pathway. Sugarcane is an example for a plant that's showing C4 pathway. After the C3 cycle, we can study C4 pathway. It's Calvin cycle or C3 cycle. Calvin cycle or C3 cycle, which consists of 3 main steps. They are carboxylation, reduction, regeneration. These are the 3 main steps coming under Calvin cycle or the C3 cycle or the dark reaction or the biosynthetic pathway. So first one, carboxylation. What is happening in carboxylation? So in carboxylation, this carbon dioxide, that's a compound, the carbon dioxide is accepted by a compound called ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate, which is the primary carbon dioxide acceptor. So this compound accepts the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, and it reduces to become 3-phosphoglyceric acid. So this process is called carboxylation. Carbon dioxide is combining with the ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate to become 3-carbon compound. And the name of the compound is phosphoglyceric acid, otherwise called PGA, phosphoglyceric acid, which is the first compound formed in C3 cycle, and that is a 3-carbon compound. So the cycle is called a C3 cycle. The first stable compound formed is a 3-carbon compound, and the name is phosphoglyceric acid. Here 2 molecules of phosphoglyceric acid is formed. So this step is called carboxylation. Carbon dioxide is combining with the ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate to become phosphoglyceric acid, which is a 3-carbon compound, and 2 molecules of phosphoglyceric acid is formed. And this process is accelerated, or this process occurs with the help of an enzyme called Rubisco. So Rubisco is the most abundant enzyme in the world because it can be seen in every plant. The most abundant enzyme in plant is which one? Rubisco. Ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase, because this enzyme has the capacity to accept both carbon dioxide and oxygen. So this ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase is the enzyme which helps for this process carboxylation. Then the second event, reduction, where this phosphoglyceric acid reduced to first of all triose phosphate and then becomes the glucose. And we know that here 2 molecules of phosphoglyceric acid is produced. So this 2 molecule will reduce to become the triose phosphate, and later it becomes starch. And for this reduction, it requires 2 molecule of ATP and 2 NADPH, because here we can see 2 PGA. For the conversion of 1 PGA, 1 ATP and 1 NADPH are enough. As there are 2 molecules are present, P requires 2 ATP and 2 NADPH. So here we can see these are the product of light reaction that is utilized in the dark reaction. So 2 molecules of ATP and 2 molecules of NADPH are utilized to become triose phosphate. So when ATP is utilized, it becomes ADP, and when NADPH is utilized, it becomes NADP and inorganic phosphate. So here 2 molecules are produced. So here 2 ATP and 2 NADPH are utilized to become 1 molecule of triose phosphate. So that process is called a reduction. Then comes the third step, that is regeneration. So something is regenerating. Who is regenerating? Yes, the enzyme, this one. Ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. So which is the primary carbon dioxide acceptor. The carbon dioxide acceptor is ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. That compound is regenerating from this triose phosphate by utilizing 1 molecule of ATP. So by utilizing 1 molecule of ATP from this triose phosphate, this 1,5-bisphosphate, ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate is regenerating. So this step is called regeneration. Next comes how many ATP and NADPH are utilized for the fixation of 1 molecule of carbon dioxide. So here we know that this is 1 molecule of carbon dioxide. During the first step, during carboxylation, there is no ATP and NADPH are utilized. But during the reduction time, as there are 2 molecules of PGA are formed, in order to become triose phosphate, it requires 2 ATP and 2 NADPH. And again, from triose phosphate, ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate is regenerating. There 1 ATP is utilized. So during the fixation of 1 molecule of carbon dioxide, how many ATP? Here 2 and here 1. Total 3 ATP and 2 NADPH are utilized for the fixation of 1 molecule of CO2. And we know the equation of photosynthesis. What is the equation of photosynthesis? That is 6CO2 is utilized for becoming 1 molecule of glucose. So in this Calvin cycle, we have explained the fixation of 1 CO2. So for 1 CO2, 3 ATP and 2 NADPH are utilized. Not 2 ATP, 2 NADPH. That is utilized for the fixation of 1 molecule of CO2. Here we can see 6 molecules of CO2s are present. So total how many ATPs are utilized? For the formation of 1 molecule of glucose from 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 into 3, 18 ATPs and 6 into 2, 12 NADPH are utilized.